Hi, this is Donna Pasquarello, and I'm reporting through my Second Life avatar, Flint, to talk about the lesson that I created in the You Do Too learning platform. Most of the work that I've done at Full Sail has revolved around the subject of journalism. It's what I teach during the day, and this lesson that I created is for a basic journalism class, and it mostly deals with what elements create news and what students should look at when deciding if something is news or not. The concept of what is news often goes unthought of, and it's assumed to be an easy question. But actually there are some criteria that need to be considered. The lesson that I constructed goes through a brief introduction and then goes on to talk about fact and opinion. There's some material that's presented in the way of definitions, and a quick assessment follows that just to be sure students are on the right page. There's a video that's included after that that goes into how the United States perceives news, and then the actual criteria for newsworthiness. What are the things that make up the news? After a quick review of those criteria, there's a brief lower level review assessment, and then what I consider to be the most important assessment is followed, and it's an actual writing assignment where students have to take a news article and analyze what makes this article fit into the category of being newsworthy. The lower level concepts that are presented are really what makes this lesson appropriate for beginning journalism students, or anybody interested in just looking at what goes into deciding on whether or not an article should be included in some sort of print or broadcast media. The concepts of fact and opinion is an important one for young students to consider, especially since they're bombarded with so many pieces of news that really don't fit into the category of fact. They are often confronted with sensationalism, and I really wanted to be firm and concrete on what makes something a fact, something that's provable, something that can be tested. So I really tried to hammer in those definitions at the beginning of the lesson. Following that portion, there's a video that's included that was published on TED through the TED conference, and it's a video by Alyssa Miller, who is basically an authority on how news coverage is sculpted by those that actually choose the articles that are out there. And the video is entertaining, but it's also very informative about how slanted the news that we see every day is. And I wanted beginning journalism students especially to recognize that fact. The news criteria for newsworthiness are, again, is presented as definitions, and some lower level assessment goes on. But then the final assessment that's on the lesson involves writing, which is harder for me to judge and harder for me to score, but really what's important in a journalism course is to get the students actually writing. I included a link for the students to follow to the wiki that I created for Journalism 101, a basic journalism course, and it requires the students to open up a particular page that deals with analyzing an article that is also linked to my lesson. The students need to read the article and then explain why that article is newsworthy using the criteria that they just learned through this lesson. The students are then required to add their comments, their explanation and analysis as a thread to this particular page, and hopefully some discussions will occur based on the article, which deals with cheating in schools. I really tried to pick an article that was something that the students might have heard of and might feel some sort of passion about, so as they create their threads, they will be able to comment on one another's other people's comments also. Both my thesis and my program project deal with the need for, and hopefully what is the increase in, multimedia journalism. Students need to be exposed not just to print journalism, but to the broadcast journalism, the multimedia things that are out there and available to them. This lesson that I included tries to bring in the multimedia aspect, but also focuses on the writing because that aspect needs to be continued. I chose this platform because it does require the students to involve themselves in multimedia presentation of the material that they respond with. Second Life is another learning platform that I'd like to become more involved with, and the influence of multimedia and journalism is present in the Second Life world, that virtual world also. The establishment of classrooms that resemble the broadcast world and how that multimedia presence is going to be felt is also in Second Life, and I plan on using that as a resource for students when they create their multimedia journalism. Most of the major news agencies recognize the virtual world as being a place of learning, and I want to encourage that with my students also. The scene that I've included in this presentation shows what a modern newsroom might look like and how classrooms need to mirror that exposure to many, many sources. This is a classroom area that CNN has set up for iReport, and students can actually go into Second Life and practice their news reporting. That's what many reporters are involved in now, is not just the writing of stories, not just the research, but also in the presentation, the videoing, the whole package. So I want to include that as much as I can. As far as publicizing my lesson, Second Life would be an excellent place for me to join groups and advertise the lesson and to promote participation. Facebook does also have some groups that are journalism-based that I could use to help present the lesson and to encourage people to analyze and give me feedback on exactly how I can improve those lessons and get more out of it for students. The UDO2 platform was an excellent place for me to involve all of the different media types, both audio and video, as well as the writing portion. And the wiki, Wet Paint Wiki, really was a good place for me that students can access without worrying about approvals and budgeting and all that. My overall experience was definitely one of learning on my part, and hopefully any learners that watched my lesson also experienced that learning too. I hope this fully explains what it was that I tried to accomplish, and I hope you enjoyed listening to Flint talk about my lesson on journalism. Thank you very much.